Hey everyone, Wes here for the Fandom Power Podcast. In the years that we've been reviewing the various new Star Wars properties on Disney Plus, we've translated a lot of Aurebesh. Now, Aurebesh, if you didn't already know, is the written form of Galactic Basic, which is a lingua franca of sorts that most species in the Star Wars universe can either speak or read. It's basically English. It's the reason why, no matter where you go in Star Wars, almost all of the written language you see uses the same set of glyphs, digraphs, and ligatures. So, whether it's a computer display on a starship, a sign on a building, and everything else in between, we try really hard to translate as much as possible. I mean, on top of all the world building that it contributes to, it often contains little Easter eggs, which was exactly the case in a recent episode of Star Wars The Bad Batch. It's a blink and you'll miss it moment where a neon billboard advertises the musical duo of Erodia Ventifoli and Lulio Primoc, two characters that appeared in 2018's Solo: A Star Wars Story. And there were several other ads in this episode as well, all displayed on these rotating billboards, which made for a lot of translation. And while most of it was easy to read, some of the text was so small that not even a big screen 4K TV was enough to make it out. And up until now, the size of the text has really been the major limiting factor when it comes to translating something. Then we got this ad. Smack dab in the middle of the first row was this character I'd never seen before. The rest of it was pretty straightforward though. The letters T, J, and the word repair. But what was that middle character? Looking at the context of the entire ad, I was convinced it had to be some form of punctuation, like a comma or maybe a period. But here's the problem. Looking at the Aurebesh table that I normally use, we can immediately rule out both of those. And that's when I noticed something about the table itself. I've been using this same table for over 2 years and only just now realized it's missing what I would consider a common form of punctuation. The good old-fashioned ampersand. Now, I have a couple of font sets downloaded for when I need to write something in Aurebesh, and they all show the ampersand like this. And that meant I had to do a little research. So, I went back to the beginning. You see, the first appearance of Aurebesh in Star Wars was during this sequence at the beginning of Return of the Jedi. Up until this point, most of the written language in Star Wars was just plain old English. And no, it's not the Mandela effect, because the inclusion of Aurebesh in A New Hope was just one more thing Lucasfilm changed for the 2004 home media release of the film. And that early Aurebesh we saw in 1983 was absolute gibberish. It wasn't until 1994, when West End Games published the Star Wars Miniatures Battles Companion, the Aurebesh alphabet appeared in its first usable form. Illustrator and author Stephen Crane had redrawn the existing glyphs used in Return of the Jedi and added some new ones to come up with a formal 34-character alphabet. But that original table excluded any form of punctuation. 3 years later, in 1996, Crane would revise his alphabet for the game supplement Imperial Entanglements to include some basic punctuation. The ampersand remained elusive. But with a working version of Aurebesh available to the public for the first time, fans went to work putting their own spin on the language. And the same year Imperial Entanglements was published, one fan known online as Mike E. Webb created his own font based on Crane's work, called Aurebesh. Not only did Webb use his own punctuation, he also gave us the first ever ampersand, and it looked like this. So there you go, mystery solved. Lucasfilm just canonized a fan-created font. But you might be asking, what about that other ampersand I just showed you? Well, that's another fan-created Aurebesh font. That one comes from pixelsagas.com and was released in 2013. So yeah, fan fonts have become so accessible that even Lucasfilm has taken to using them, whether they meant to or not. It's just too easy for an artist to hop on the internet and download one. And if no one is paying attention, suddenly you have a body of work that has mix-match topography all over it. Well, there's a lot more to talk about when it comes to Aurebesh. I mean, we haven't even touched on numerals or currency. But remember Mike E. Webb's font? His was the first one to use the technological style of numerals that have become commonplace throughout modern Star Wars. But we'll save that for another video. In the meantime, if you want to know more about the history of Aurebesh, check out Aurek Fonts on Twitter. If you like this video, leave us a comment. And don't forget to subscribe for even more weekly Star Wars content. And if you'd like to become part of the Fandom Power team and have your name featured in a production credit, check out our Patreon for all the details. Until the next video, bye for now.